Welcome back, everyone, to another tournament breakdown presented by Midway USA. We're at the St. Johns River, just finished up. Had a much better week than we did at the Harris Chain. They're back-to-back events. The first day of the Harris Chain got postponed, and so they ended up pushing the event, and we only had 2 days of practice here at the St. Johns River. So when you have hundreds of miles of water that is in play, you really have to, I guess, be smart with your decisions on how you practice. I didn't want to get super spread out. I wanted to kind of confine myself to a couple areas. And so day one of practice, I went into Rodman because it's a place I know they live. You can have a good event there. You can potentially win in Rodman. And I felt like that was a place that I could quickly figure out. And so I went there and started my practice. And I had a pretty decent first day of practice. Had some big topwater bites, had some big glide bait bites, caught some on jerk bait, drop shot. I felt like I could fish in there and do a lot of different things and get a lot of different bites, right? So I felt like I could move around and shake and like figure it out in the tournament if things changed, right? I was easier to break down than trying to break down the entire body of water of the St. Johns River. And day two, I was really torn on how I wanted to spend my second day of practice. And even when I was pulling out of the campground, I couldn't decide if I wanted to turn left and go back to Rodman and dial that in more, or if I wanted to go to Salt Springs, because I spend a lot of time fishing in Salt Springs. And I just decided to not spread myself thin, go back to Rodman, and just try to dial it in and figure something out more. Now, hindsight's 2020, and obviously it got one out of Salt Springs, and I should have spent day two in there. Who knows if I would have figured it out or been able to catch them, but I should have at least looked at that option. But in my mind, I made the decision. I had to live with it, and I thought just putting all my eggs into Rodman would give me the best bet. And after my first day of practice being pretty solid, catching some 5 and 6 pounders, I thought, there's potential to dial this in and win a little bit. So really came down to 4 techniques. And it seemed like a lot of the bites I got came on 2 baits, but a lot of the bigger bites I got came on 2 other baits. So it's kind of this 1-2 punch with 4 different rods. And the first one is the Megabass Edo Shiner in Matte Shad. The reason I like this one this time of year is that I can fish it really fast. And that was key in Rodman. A lot of other guys were throwing jerk baits and you'd get a lot of fish to follow. And what I figured out is that you had to fish his bait super fast, super aggressive, just pure reaction strikes. They were feeding on a lot of bait and shad that were moving around, and they're positioned around the trees out in the timber. And I was using my Mega Live, scanning around, figuring out which trees they were wanting to live on, how they were relating to the creek channels and things like that. And this bait just stays super stable. You're able to rip that bait super hard and fast and not have it blow out or get the hooks tangled up, which is super key. Throwing that on 12-pound Tatsu, the same Daiwa Steez CTSV, and I got a little SLP handle that they sent me on there, and then the Alpha Angler Slasher. So 610 medium action rod. That's in the new 2.0 version, so it's got the new butt cap and stuff on it. But same blank, just a little bit different look. That bait caught a good majority of my fish, and it was a way that I was able to cover ground. And it seemed like these fish would be in little pods. They wouldn't always be on just one tree, but there'd be a section of the timber that they would be on several different trees and timber pieces or patches in that area. And then there were a few key moments where either I had fish follow the jerkbait and I would see them swim back, or just the fish were positioned lower down in the timber. And that's right, you guessed it, the X-Zone Deception Worm in green pumpkin blue, bailing me out again. It just never leaves my boat. So if you guys are tired of seeing this thing, I'm sorry, but it just gets bit, and I have so much confidence in that bait. I actually have it on an Exist 2500, spooled up with the new Seaguar JDM braid. It's called PEX8, and it is in a 21-pound test. So they've got some unique sizes in that one. 21-pound test is super, super thin, but also super strong. So where I used to throw 15-pound smackdown, I actually throw 21 in this, and I think the diameter's still even smaller, but stronger. And then again, fishing in that timber, I wanted something that had a little bit more abrasion resistance, so we went with the 12-pound Tatsu and a 1/4 ounce green pumpkin X-Zone teardrop drop shot weight. Super simple Alpha Angler DSR. You guys have seen this setup all across the country. If you haven't, well, just pick any one of the videos on this channel and you'll probably see that worm come into play. So that was really like the two baits that got, I would say, the majority of my bites. And then it seemed like I would start out with those, and then I would kind of transition, which this may seem backwards, but I would start throwing topwater later in the day. It seemed like the more calm it was, the hotter it was, that bait would rise up in the water column, those fish would get higher up in the water column, and I caught a lot of them on this Storm Topwalker. And I don't even think I think they quit making this bait, but I still have some left over. This one you can see is clearly been around the block a few times, and then I just swap out the hooks, put those new BKK Spear 71 SS trebles on there. Those things are nasty. They're like little talon, like little eagle talons. And then same with the feather hook. I've got one of the BKK feathered trebles on the back. So just love the way that this bait works. You know, it's like a hard chop, and throwing that on the Alpha Angler top hammer, 7-foot medium, similar action to the Slasher if you've thrown the Slasher, but just a little bit more power and a little bit more length to handle those bigger top waters. So works great. Still a shorter, full EVA handle that just gives you a lot of comfort casting those baits and working those top waters all day. And then the Daiwa Steez A. That's kind of my workhorse reel for most things. And then we got a little SLP handle on there that they sent me. A little carbon fiber handle, sprucing it up a little bit. And that bite was awesome, right? I was targeting not only the timber, there were fry garters in the timber, there were fish chasing shad, some fish schooling around in the timber. And then some of my bigger bites actually came around the eelgrass and isolated pads that were up shallow. So I was throwing that thing anywhere from 3 foot to 12 foot out there in Rodman, getting a bunch of bites. And then really, we had one bite. We had 2 bites. I lost a big one day one on it. And then I switched up my rod, switched up the hooks, and I think that helped a little bit. But on day 3, we got that one big Florida bite we needed, 7-pounder. And that was the difference between us finishing somewhere in the 30s to finishing 16th in the event. And that one big bite came on the Clutch Boss. Here, let me turn it so it's right side up.
Oh, it's a bass. It's a bass, dude. It's not a striper. Please stay on there. Oh my gosh. On the glide. Freaking giant. Oh my gosh, dude. It's a giant. Come on. Come on. Come on. She's got just the back hook. Just the back hook. Yes! On the boss, baby! On the boss!
8-inch glide bait. Super, super fun bait to throw. And it may not be the prettiest bait to the eye, but the action of this bait is incredible. And I think one thing that I really like about this bait is that it's got that tall profile. So from the side, it looks like a big meal, but your hookup ratio seems to be a little better because of how thin that body is. It's super stable. Got some bigger trebles on there. Weighted it down a little bit with some lead wire wrap so we could get it, sink it down there a little bit and just kind of hover it in the fish's face. And then throwing that on, flip it around, the Daiwa Tatula Elite 300. Absolutely love this reel. You've got a bigger spool so that you can hold that 25-pound Tatsu that I've got on there. And then you've got bigger knobs, right? So we've got big knobs, 110 millimeter handle. So all of those things, right? Bigger gears, handle, knobs, bigger spool. All of that just gives you more control and power when you hook these fish, because as you will either see in this video or in the series video, the 7-pounder I caught on this, one hook, back hook in the corner of the mouth, and we were able to land her. But you got to keep the pressure on those fish, because if you give them any pressure, all that weight, the fish are able to throw the bait. And then throwing that on the Alpha Angler wide glide. So super fun. One of my favorite ways to catch a bass. To be able to catch a 7-pounder on that in Florida was amazing. It came at the perfect time when we needed it, and we're able to finish up in 16th place, kind of offset our dismal finish at the Harris Chain last week. Come out of this one with a win and some good momentum coming into Lake Murray. Appreciate you guys watching. Make sure you guys check out all this stuff at midwayusa.com, and we'll see you on the next one.